This is going to be such a fun show, y'all. So, our guest today, he is an NAACP Image Award winner, a thespian, a friend, and so much more. You most likely know him as Uncle Clifford from P-Valley, but we know him as Nicco Annan.
What up, y'all?
Thank you for joining us, Nicco.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm very honored that you came.
Why?
It's just an honor to share space with another human being like that.
Amen.
It's a very intentional thing to share time out of one's life and to come here. The whole thing.
No, for real, it is.
So very honored.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I got questions here, but I think when we get into the conversation, a lot of this is gonna go out the window.
Uh-oh.
But a very first question. You've become an inspiration to many by embracing who you are. What was a moment in your life you could think of that really prompted you to step into your truth?
Growing up in Detroit, there were a lot of things that I encountered, whether that was bullying or just, and I don't think it was bullying initially. Initially, it was just hard life. It's the hard knock life for us. It's the hard knock life for us. That's what I was going through. So just growing up and learning how to fight, learning how to defend myself, hey.
It is what it is.
Hey, I had one of them mamas that would stand out on the porch and be like, let them fight. Let them fight. So I had to learn how to
One of the mamas who would make you fight, and if you didn't, you had to fight her.
There
And
you
that's
go.
a fight you wasn't going to win,
Yeah.
so you had to fight.
And I had my cousins, that always told me different strategies and stuff like that. So I grew up learning how to defend myself. Just I think to be ready, not necessarily for anything, because I didn't live like this hard life like that. So I kind of learned how to defend myself. You know what? Dance class.
Dance class.
Dance class. And I say dance class because I would be one of the only guys in class. And the teasing and the ridicule that would come from that, whether it was either out of being the only guy or people assuming a sexuality when I had not proclaimed anything.
Because dancing is for girls.
Exactly.
All of that. Yeah.
I was just in my own truth. But in my mind, I loved dance, and I was emulating Gene Anthony Ray, who was gay, but I didn't know at the time.
You didn't know what gay was
I
maybe
didn't.
at that time, yeah.
It was just like, oh, that's free. I saw you being in touch with music, you being in your body, making shapes and, or sounds. It was just free. So I was just trying to get into that because I was into tap. I was into ballet. I was into modern. I was into, back then it was called ethnic dance. You know what I'm saying?
What does ethnic dance, what falls under that umbrella?
I guess anything outside of America.
Okay.
Back then,
at
what I'm
that
saying?
time, yeah.
At that time,
These days, they probably have more PC words for
exactly,
it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but in true form, I studied different West African dance cultures, and I feel that I had to learn to defend myself or find my own identity through that space. It was also because today's PC term would be I would be a non-traditional dancer. Because I did not have your body form, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have, the hip crease. I didn't have a certain clavicle at that time, you know what I'm saying?
I know.
But after that, just finding that and, you wear your leotard or your unitard, you had certain dance attire that was a must for the recitals.
And there was no way around it.
Correct. And it wasn't about, oh, well, we're going to do something that's a little more fitting for this body versus that body. So I think that dance class would definitely be the answer for that.
Dance class, yes. And also the whole Detroit thing.
Mm-hmm.
I told you before, I spent every summer of my childhood in Detroit. I'm from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
On the east side.
Come on.
7 Mile and Russell.
Okay.
It's a hard knock life. It'll bring things out of you for sure.
Yes, it will.
It will bring things out of you.
Oh, the stories of 7 Mile.
Give us a story of 7 Mile.
No, I just remember this one time in high school. I was a freshman in high school, and I worked at a car wash when I was young. I started when I was 13. And I was working at this car wash, and they were juniors, and were they seniors? But I think most of them were juniors. It was four guys in a car, and they were in the music department at my high school. I went to a very big high school, and they were very much so. They were gay. One of them was very flamboyant and loud with everything that he did, and he liked me. I didn't know that he liked me. I didn't. Again, I was a freshman. I did not know what courtship and all of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
was, And he saw me one day walking down 7 Mile going to the car wash, and he was going to follow me, him and his friends in the car, and so I had to duck off and hit the alley and hit a couple of things, and that led to some, certain kind of language, and then some. We had to throw some bows because I was like, "You're not gonna punk me because you're going back to the car wash." Like my dad could be there,
The
like
car wash is there.
right, like
Yeah.
what's going on, like, and I don't want you to know where I work so that you don't always come and see me,
Mm.
and
So now you
fuck with
ducking through
me
the
at
alley.
work.
You got to throw him off the scent. So you beat the boy up, Nicco.
I did.
What were his friends when you was beating him up?
They was trying to stop, and the one was in the car still, and the other, I don't know what they was doing in the back, but I mean, I tried to avoid it at all. Oh, but I was like, no, not my good. No, but so yeah.
Shut up.
I didn't know what they was gonna do because at first I didn't. I thought it was just some folks heckling me.
You didn't realize it was.
I didn't know it was
car
them
from
at
gay
first.
folks, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I didn't. And it because it also felt like, and I knew I was gay at the
Mm-hmm.
time. I never had like some big epiphany of like, oh, this is who I am. I knew I was gay, but I was about my business. You know what I'm saying? I got stuff to do, and I wasn't just out there like that. And for people to just be catcalling me on the street, I was
He's like, what is going
what's
on?
happening? I'm all of like 14, 15 or whatever at the time. And I was just coming from St. Mary's of Redford. We don't do that. We don't do that.
It's so interesting what you just said about not having the epiphany about being gay. It just was. It's like it came out of utero and it was like, this is just what it is. People often ask, well, when was the moment? There was no moment. You knew it. Now, there might have been a moment where, things culminated. But yeah, it just always was. Your parents always knew too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My grandmother told me a story one time about how I was in the backyard on the east side of Detroit, and I was hanging out in the garden with my grandfather, and I was ever picking up tomatoes and the collard greens or what have you. And my grandmother was standing in the doorway with my mom, and she said, he's special. And my mama said, yeah, I know. And so my grandmother is the one who told me the story. And she said, so, well, what you gonna do? And she said, love him. I'm gonna love him. And she said, all right.
I love that story.
My grandmother's brother was gay.
Okay, so she understood what special was.
Isn't
Isn't it funny the terminology they use?
Yeah.
Special, friend. Still to this day, mom be like, was that your friend? Mom, I have lots of friends. Say what you mean to say.
That's right.
So many people don't have that experience though.
That is correct.
Of being loved through it. So many people don't have that experience. For people who are watching this who did not grow up with that experience or are not currently having that experience, what would you say to them about how do you move through that? How do you give it to yourself?
I think that that's something that you learn throughout life. I don't think that you learn it at one point, like before you come out or when you come out. I think that you are always going to learn. That's something that I've learned. I've learned that I have to love myself in each iteration of myself, as I grow, oh, you've never had this before, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a certain amount of economic status, whether that's moving out of your city that you were born in. Like, I never stop the learning process or think about it like that I've got it all figured out. So I would say give yourself grace. I would say do the work. Don't be afraid of the work. And
That's
I think
scary.
that part, it is scary, but it's also worth it. I think like what's on the other side of it is a different type of joy, a different type of freedom that no one can give to you. I feel like I would say that the freedom or the validation that you're looking for, when it comes from you initially, when it initiates from in within, it's much more fulfilling. It's much more gratifying than anything anyone could ever have given
It might be a long road to get there,
me.
but you'll get there.
That's right.
Yeah, you will get there. What is one of the biggest life lessons you've learned about self-worth and authenticity?
Child, they going deep. You understand what I mean?
Listen, this is things I've learned.
Tell me that again. No, tell me that. No, because I want to get it right. I want to answer like, as concise and clear as possible.
What has been the biggest life lesson that you've had about self-worth and authenticity? As a person who is so authentic.
Probably being anything other than myself costs too much.
Mm. Mm.
I think the cost of inauthentic interactions is much more than whatever it may cost you to be who you are.
Mhm.
That's why, as an actor, I show up as character and you pay me. My social is like all day Nicco, and people say, "Oh, like okay, all day Nicco," and I say, "No, I ain't nobody else until you pay me."
If you want me to be somebody else, write me a check.
That's
Otherwise,
correct.
I'm Nicco.
That is correct. And just like any artist, it's your voice, it's your body, it's your hands, it's your intonation, but it's the given circumstances of story that create character. Just like if you grow up in Dubai and you grow up wearing a hijab, that's a different experience just physically of what that
Correct.
could do for you than if you grew up. I grew up wearing do-rags, you know what I'm saying?
And that's just geographic location.
That is correct.
Just that.
Do you understand what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Those things affect how you interact with people, your level of assertion, or just social construct. So I think that, yeah.
I mean, I think also that's important because in this industry,
Mm-hmm.
the industry, it often asks people to conform to a certain thing, be a certain way, act a certain way.
Mhm.
How does one maintain their sense of self in this particular industry?
I think that the entertainment industry is a very, very, very tricky place. And I think that in my opinion, what often happens is that people get into it looking for someone to save them or someone to wave some magic wand over their heads, and then you have become, or then you have arrived. I love this moment of my life because everything that people say I am, it's not necessarily new information to me.
Talk about it.
It is new. What is new is how what my art did or does, how it affects you. That's what's new to me. That's new information. Um, and I can say that because I've worked for it. I have bled for it. I have trained for it. And I think that that's on every run of the meter in this industry. It's not just my acting. People would see me and see me dance and be like, "Oh my gosh, yo, you so light on your feet. Oh my gosh, you big boy. Okay, all right." I would always get that. As an executive producer, people would try to short sight your decision makings, or I'm telling you very specifically, this is what I want and why I want it. I shouldn't have to go through all of that, but I've already given you the deck. You've already bought the product. This is what it is, and this is why it is, and this is the intention for it. I'm a man that moves with purpose. I'm a man that moves with clarity. And I think that oftentimes in this industry, people don't think that you know what you
People oftentimes don't think that you know what you know based on assumption, mostly
know. Hmm.
looking at a person.
Hmm.
I mean, let's call a thing. Being black in the industry, that's off top, right? Then you add queer on top of that.
Hmm.
It's a whole, it's not to say that one has to prove themselves, but there's an expectation of, well, have you really earned it, right?
Hmm.
And, this is an industry that it can be brutal.
Yeah, listen, I think a lot of them are, but I think so many people don't read resumes.
Mm.
They require for you to have these resumes and these
Formatted
references.
properly, and they don't look
Exactly.
at it.
And
They
don't look at it or understand what they're reading. I remember when I moved out to LA from New York, again from Detroit. So my trajectory went from Detroit. I went to college in New York, and after New York, purchase. Were you saying purchase? Oh no, you were just moving.
No. Pull the microphone closer to you. There we go.
Gotcha. Sugar, sugar, boom, boom. This is just a test. Is this better? Great. So my trajectory went from Detroit and then graduated high school and went to college at Purchase in New York at the conservatory. After that, I had an opportunity to get my master's in choreography in the program. I chose not to do it because I was like, I want to get out and I want to get my theater chops going. So I just did, off Broadway. Then that led to off Broadway, which then led to regional theater. And that kind of led me on tours and all that stuff. And then I was teaching at Yale and I was doing all this stuff. And when I came to LA and made the decision, I think that was 2013, 2014. And I would meet different agents and things like that because I didn't have representation.
Mm-hmm.
I remember them seeing my resume and all of these esteemed theaters that I had worked at, whether it was the Goodman, whether it was, Huntington, whether it was MacArthur, they were like, where's that?
What is that?
What is it?
What does that mean to me?
Exactly. And I was like, oh, for your student film. Oh, okay.
For your student film,
No.
your USC, your thesis?
Your thesis.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. All right. So I understood that they valued tape here more than training. Tape being, actually having footage of your work, getting stamped and seals of approval of your training was not necessarily the same, but I still knew that it would show up for me on camera. The training would show up, it would be present in how I interacted with the people. So it was different what they value, but I say you got to always have it within yourself.
And, theater is an actor's medium. Television is a producer's medium and a writer's medium. And then movies is a director's medium.
And an editor's.
And an editor's medium. They're all different things and they all work together, but their specialties are, it's a little bit different. When I first moved here, I moved here from New York.
Okay. You went from Chicago to New York?
Chicago to New York. I went to St. John's in New York.
Copy you.
And then I moved here in 2014.
Oh, bet.
I went to this acting workshop, and you read for agents and managers and all that stuff. And I had been doing theater most of my life before that. And this agent was like, "Oh my God, I want you for print. You're gonna be so good for print." And he was like, "Do you live in LA?" And I was like, "Yeah, I lived in Flatbush. I did not live in LA." I was like, "Yeah." So he was like, "Well, when can we meet? Maybe in September, right after Labor Day." He was like, "How about the Tuesday after Labor Day?" I still lived in Flatbush and it was the middle of July. And I was like, okay. Sold everything, moved to LA, right?
Oh, wow.
Sold everything, got a car, got an apartment, moved to LA. I go to this meeting, and when I'm sitting in the lobby and the guy comes out and he brings me in the room. And when he brings me in the room, I see this lady sitting there and I realize, oh my God, this is the assistant. He has to sell me to his boss. So I sit in front of this woman and she looks at me. And resume is on the back of the headshot like it's supposed to be. She looks at me and she goes, I mean, can you even dance? And I said, look at my resume. There's musical theater. I, yeah, I was in Thoroughly Modern Millie. Yeah. And she was like, whatever, fine.
She didn't even know what that was,
Didn't
did
know
she?
what it was.
She didn't know that that was about the 20s and the 30s and that you had to use the flapper and that you knew about certain
Didn't know
dance
what a
art
flapper
styles.
was. Had no idea. No idea. So
Wow.
unfortunately,
Listen.
unless I came in with a tape of me on, I don't know what show was on at that time, NCIS or something, there was no way that
Shut
woman would have
up.
ever been interested. Never been
hmm
interested.
Well, I mean, I did have to learn. I had a friend, she was a producer at the time. She's a showrunner now, but a producer at the time. She had looked at my resume and said, you need to reconstruct your resume because your resume was constructed under the format for theater. So even the film things that I had on my resume, it was about reordering them and putting the film before the theater. And I was listing character names, and they wanted to know was, were you a co-star, were you a guest star, were you a series
Series regular.
That
Period.
was it. You know, they didn't necessarily even need the director's name. They wanted more so the network that it was on. You know, just things like that that went against what you thought in New York in theater, or even in Chicago in theater. You know, where it's about the play, the character, the director that you
director.
worked with, and then the
The
theater.
theater, yes.
You know, because they were. It's. I felt like back on the East Coast, relationships were very, very, very much so more. They had more merit and value than out here. Here, I felt that it was assumption. I think that the business moves on a lot of assumption because you had to be. You were a serious regular on blah 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 show, so you had to
You
be.
must be great.
Yes, and it's like that was on Wooby. I said Wooby.
Wooby, y'all, with
I
a
said
W.
Wooby with
That
a
was
W.
on Wooby.
Yes.
True story though.
Come on.
Seeing that series regular credit, they don't care what the streaming platform. Knowing that it's series regular, that sparks their attention. But theater is the actor's medium. By the time it gets to the TV screen, it's edited, there's lighting, there's all kinds of elements there's music cues that enhance a performance beyond what could actually be done if you were watching something live in theater, in living color, one take through. I've always said, I think if producers in LA really wanted to find really, really good talent, they'd spend more time in the theater, just watching actors. Because you can manipulate a little bit of a performance on tape.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years since I guess you and I both moved here, how do you think things have changed for queer actors and actors in the LGBTQIA plus community?
Okay. So the first thing that I'm gonna say is that I'll feel what hasn't changed. I want to say that. And what to me hasn't changed is the sense of responsibility for humanity. I think a lot of times, whether it was in 2014 or whether it was in 2004 to 2014 to 2024, I think that we still have to be very specific that we are portraying our full selves in the community. It may not be on that page because it's not always a guarantee that someone from the community is
the
writing
writer.
or a part of the writing staff. And all writers don't write human stories. Some writers are writing dramatic stories or horror stories. And those
Which they follow a certain pattern.
That's correct. These are the tropes that we want to highlight. This is the rubric that worked for a scary movie, so we're gonna do it again. You know what I mean? And gonna just boom, 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 boom. And with that, I find oftentimes you will get cookie cutters. You know, I have read and I have been asked to audition for things that literally are carbon copies of what I've created with Katori Hall on P-Valley. And I look at those things and I'm aghast.
such theater.
Yeah, I'm no, because like that exists and you want me to do it again and you don't have any stamp on it. And I just think that it's not, I don't think that it's real. I don't want to say realistic. I don't think it's real because I think Uncle Clifford exists how she does partly because of the region.
You take it out of that region and put it somewhere else, and it's a different story.
That's correct.
Immediately.
Uncle Clifford in New York is very different. Growing up there is very different. Why? Just one on its own, there's already a different level of access to expression.
Mm-hmm.
Down in Chucalissa, Mississippi, a fictitious place, but Chucalissa, Tennessee actually exists. It's a Native American burial ground. But being in that space, you got to kind of fight for your space to occupy. You don't always see a lot of people that's going to look like you or
they're not going to
move
give
like
you the space.
That is correct. You must take it. So that creates in itself another type of assertion in the character, or chutzpah, so to speak. I think that in New York, you could just walk into any Rainbow Club, or any club. You walking down the street. I remember when I first moved here to LA, I saw this girl and I was just like, oh, hey, I love your pants. Like, you looking good, girl. She thought I was trying to holler at her and I was like, I actually went up to her and I was like, boo.
Boo.
I'm on the other team. I said, you don't have to be that stank. And she was like, oh my God, like, why are you giving me? I was like, I didn't know. I was like, and you won't know. Because if you thought I was a straight man hollering at you and that's the way you responded, that's why you single, right?
Ain't gonna stay that way.
Have a good night.
You gave it to her like that.
I did.
She might have needed it. She might have needed it.
It was on my heart.
She might have needed it.
It was on my heart. She was a beautiful black sister. And I was just like, why are you so stank? And you look so good.
Damn. But that's the thing. That's the thing I was saying earlier about when people come here, for the most part, people are coming here for entertainment.
Okay.
Truth be told, people are coming here to be stars and feel like they have to be a certain thing, act a certain way, give a certain thing. That energy that homegirl was giving you, we can go outside right now and find 15 more just like that.
That's correct.
Just like that.
That is correct. I don't think being a star is being arrogant. I don't think being a star is that. Being a star is, if you take the galactic definition, it is about attraction. It's like a planet. It's what's orbiting.
Pull.
It's a pull. What am I looking at? I don't know what I'm looking at, or maybe I do know what I'm looking at. I can't stop looking at it.
Mesmerizing.
Yeah, I'm interested if I don't know why. All of those things, I'm fed by it. It's like the sun. Oh, it's bright. I'm putting on my shades, but I need to see. I know. That's what a star is to me. Maya Angelou always talks about when you walk into a room and when people look at you and they don't know what they're looking at. She says because she brings in all her ancestors with her.
The 10,000 before her.
Yes. She says, Granddaddy, come on in this room with me. Come on in this room with me, Uncle Pete. Come on in here, Auntie Barbara. I got to go make this speech. And I met Maya Angelou. And to sit at her feet at 21 years old in her house while she was cooking greens from her backyard.
Were they good, Nicco?
They were good.
I know they were.
And she had a little bit of vinegar and some sugar. They was jamming.
Listen.
I mean, it was, I didn't know what was happening. And I was like, wow. And I just came down here to North Carolina to do this play. Who knew I was going to be sitting up in the lady who knew why the cage birds sang house? Like, that's what I was saying. I was like, I read this book in the 9th grade and now I'm sitting up in her house at her feet. Like she was braiding my hair, but I ain't had no hair. You know what I mean?
The feeling was the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that moment, did you recognize the profundity of that moment?
Yes. I did. The thing about it is I had the blessing of mentorship. My mentor at that time was my director, and he had pushed me and I was out of college, and I had met him at an audition for this job. I was dancing in a chorus for Bubbling Brown Sugar. Okay. And I had only heard that song like on reruns of like
Right.
TV shows and stuff
Right.
like that. So I had not seen the full show before. And I was playing the young sage. So I don't know musical theater. You might know. Do you know Doug Eskew?
I do.
Doug Eskew, I was playing his younger version.
Mhm.
And I am indeed a younger version of Doug Eskew.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We both chocolate, we both tall.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We both men of a certain size, you know, and he can sing his ass off. And to come in and play his younger version when they went back in time, you know, showing how they were showmen and stuff like that. And that was us. And it was beautiful. And I got to do that with Diane Carroll. And I was just like, where am I? This is Whitley Gilbert's mama from a different world. You know, yeah, this is Dynasty.
This that lady from Dynasty.
Do you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
Yes.
It was everything. So I had a beautiful introduction into my professional career, you know, outside of the little stuff I did in high school, you know, but getting real checks. I was around seasoned actors and artists that had a lot to give. And I say that I know that's a part of why my makeup, my cultural makeup and how I move comes from, because I never came from a place of selfishness. I was raised in, this is community. This is what we do. You can't do what I do.
You gotta do what you do.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna do what I do.
Because I'm gonna do this. And if you can't keep up, let you lose your breath.
Sorry for you.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
You do it better next time, you know.
Right.
But it was very much so that I was reared under that kind of a rigor, you know. So that's why when I move, when I teach, when I choreograph, there's a certain oomph that's behind it, because I know that kind of fire creates gold, it creates brass, it makes you better, it makes you think, it makes you question things for yourself so that you can make the decision as to where you want to go or what you want to do or how much will you invest in this story, or you learn for yourself, oh, this is how I create character. You know what I mean? So yeah,
You know what it takes.
I do.
You know what it takes.
Mhm.
And so many people see the finished product.
Mhm.
They see the star. They see the show. They see the movie. That's finished. There was so much that went into not only making the thing, but getting to the point to be in the thing, right? People can look at P-Valley. That is a finished product. The journey that you've taken to get there, now that's a whole other thing.
Mhm.
And a part of that journey is having that oomph.
Yeah. I also will tell you, I think oftentimes we don't talk enough about, once you get to a place, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop, and it continues to feed you. There will be times where even I remember for the docu-series that I created, Down in the Valley, as an executive producer of that and creator, I remember they were going to try to do some song or some random music for the intro song and the title sequence. And I said, absolutely not. And they were like, why, Nicco? You don't have the budget for that. I said, I'll fix it. I'll create it.
We gonna get it.
But it has to be something real. And I literally found this band. They are a hot band, Black Alley. They are a Southern go-go band. I didn't know about them, but when I had gone and visited Howard for homecoming, you know, don't tell anybody, you know what I'm saying? I was up in Howard. I was up
Recently?
Oh, no. I'm talking about when I was in college.
Oh, I mean, I used to take the bus down
The
from
mega
New
bus.
York.
You was on that mega
Well,
bus
we used to
from-
take the Chinese bus you get in Chinatown, and it wasn't no assigned seats.
That's
You
correct.
had to throw bowls to get a seat.
That's
We
correct.
used to take that
That's
to and
right.
from.
That's right, $20.
Yes, sir.
You understand what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And I would hear like the go-go music and everything like that. So when I found them and like, you know, we're gonna build the song, and we built the whole song, Down in the Valley. But they were like, well, why are you going through all this? I said, what you don't understand is, just like right now, P-Valley hadn't been on for a year and a half. And everybody's still saying, down in the valley where the girls get naked. If you don't win, I said, I'm going to be 74 years old. and they're still
They're
going to
gonna
be
sing
singing
that
that
to you.
song.
They're gonna sing that to you.
They're still going to be like, you know, like I'm over here talking about Diane Carroll over Whitley Gilbert's mama.
And they think it down in the valley.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? They're going to always think about that. And that's a blessing. That is a blessing. Most artists don't get to that space. So once you get the blessing, it continues to feed. Being at Essence Fest and seeing this father, you know, sometimes you go places and people want to meet you or say hi.
Mhm.
And there was this line that kind of inadvertently had formed. And it was this line of just people wanted to say hi. And I think me, Brandy, and Shannon and Alphonse were down there. And I was just waiting on everybody in this little, it was supposed to be this VIP lounge, but at Essence Fest, it wasn't always a VIP lounge. And
Well, you know,
everybody-
Essence Fest is a time, so yeah.
it was a very good time.
It was
but
a very good
time. And so this brother, long story short, this brother came up to me and he was telling me this sister was before him and that wound up being his wife. And he said, I told you, don't let her talk. She can talk your head off. But she was a professor down in New Orleans. I don't remember what school, but she was a professor down there. And she was talking about how they use P-Valley as a part of their curriculum. And every week they were talking about the socioeconomic status that was displayed in the episodes and how does that apply to everyday life in Black culture, Southern culture, queer culture. She was just telling me her response from the academia of it all.
That's something you couldn't even dream of, Nicco.
Hello?
You couldn't even come up with that if you wanted to.
Hello?
Look,
Okay. Then so she goes, she was like, oh yeah, the food should be ready by now, whatever. And he just came to me and he said, I told you not to let her talk your ear off. She was gonna talk your ear off. But I'm gonna tell you something, man. I'm sitting here looking at you and I'm looking how you talk to people. I just thank you. And he starts to get wet in his eyes. And he said, my son, my child, he corrected himself and said, I think it's like Uncle Clifford. And I'm gonna tell you, watching that show and seeing like you and Loretta and Lil Murder and all the people going around, he said, I learned how to love my child more. You met my child today. I said, I did. I had met a lot of people at Essence Fest. And he said, yeah. They came home back and said that they had met you. And I was like, oh, really? And here I am meeting you. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't think I saw that light in my child since they were 14. That feeds me.
There it is right there.
That feeds me.
In the beginning, I said NAACP Image Award winner. That's the prize right there.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Absolutely. Because it's a tangible experience. It's something that was that before season 2? No, that was before this season, season 3 that's coming out. But it's moments like that God has allowed me to have. I tell you, that allow me or feed me as an artist to be able to go deeper, to be able to be even more audacious and more brave, and to be able to take the characters that I play to newer heights or depth, however you can look at it. But because you understand a part of the gift is impact and imprint. So thereby there's a level of intentionality that I can move with. I know that when we dance and it's not, there are people that's going to be hype. There's folks that's going to be hype, as you should be.
For sure.
As you should be. As there's a lot to be hype about. But at the same time, you also understand the reason behind it. Yeah, I could go on, but
listen, please do. Please do, Nicco. Don't stop yourself. I was so into what you were saying. I was thinking of something. But
I'm sorry. It was real. It feeds, even you on this platform, having this podcast, you don't know who it affects. You don't know how it feeds. I'm sure it must feed you on some level, right? How's it feeding you?
Oh my goodness. So when I was growing up, I watched talk shows. Talk show down. Not for the guests. I watched the hosts.
Okay.
And when I was in college, my first internship was the Wendy Williams show
Okay.
and
Radio or TV?
TV.
Okay.
It was the fourth season of the show.
Excuse me.
And I, for whatever reason, I was one of the only interns they let in the studio during a live taping. And I would sit in the satellite producer's room with all the producers while the show was going on. And I would watch the show. And one of the producers, she said, "You into this, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." She said, "So become a student of it. Learn it. Become a student of it." Every morning, I would sit next to her and we would watch that show and I would take notes every single day. I would put together research packets and I would come up with questions. And I would give those questions to the producers and they would filter them out. And I would watch the show and circle all the questions that I came up with that they used. And often they used a lot of them. And that's sort of how it began. I love people. I love stories. I love learning from people. I love hearing people from themselves. I like when people get all the way guttural with it and let's go all the way in. Like, how did that affect you? How did that make you feel? Because we're human. And this show is about the human experience. You know, I have people from everyday people. I told you, everyday people I meet in the lift to people recognize. Everybody has a story worth hearing. Everybody. And I love it. I really do.
That's what's up. Congratulations.
Thank you, Nicco.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I told you, I remember when you were having just your social media stories and things like that. So to see how your platform has grown and blossomed is absolutely amazing. And you over here just realizing that it was Cheetah in August.
Ooh, Cheetah in August. I was like, where did me and Nicco meet? We were on Cheetah in August, season 2.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That experience?
I do.
I do too.
I remember that experience because there was so much that was happening. I was working at a hotel at the time as a survival job. I remember the audition. I remember that was a season of life, I feel like here in LA where everyone didn't necessarily understand my gift. I was a new face. And oftentimes people didn't want to give you an opportunity.
Correct.
You know, so you have, again, that's why I say you have to fight it for it. You have to take it. Nobody is going to be nice to you because you're cute or because you got thick thighs.
We think so, don't we?
You know,
we like to.
They want something else. You know, but if you are more than, see, this is where geometry comes into play. You know, if you are greater than and not congruent with, you understand,
or not equal to.
Do you understand? Then you must
talk to them.
You must show up and you must take it. And I remember that audition. I believe I actually wore. Wow. I wore my gray suit, my uniform suit from the hotel to the audition. I changed the shirt, but I remember that, and because I was playing like this older man and he was meeting this younger guy and we were at the bar and all the things. And I was just like, let me roll up. Why did I roll up with my suit? Like at an after hours, you know, a happy hour rather, kind of a spot. And I just played it like that. And that's where it came from. Anthony, right?
Anthony Bond, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just moved to North Hollywood. I met this guy who lived down the block. And at the time, he worked catering for Universal Studios.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, they hadn't even opened Wizarding World of Harry Potter yet. They were previewing it for employees. So he was like, oh, I'm inviting some friends. You want to come with us? And so I came. And while I was there, the guy who played Cheetah, or who played August, excuse me, Andre, he was there.
Okay.
And we're just talking. He was like, well, what do you do? And I was like, I'm an actor. And he was like, huh. He was like, I think there might be a role that you might be good for on a show. And I'm like, okay. So he puts...
Because everybody halfway say that and you be like...
Everybody said that and you be like, yeah, okay. Oh, I got something for you. And you be like, okay, grain of salt. So he puts me in touch with the casting director. I reach out to the casting director. The casting director was fired. So I end up going to the wrong place and it got corrected. So I get to this audition.
Okay.
I never ever told them that I knew the guy who was on the show. I go in, I audition for a totally different character.
Mhm.
And then they're like, well, can you go in the hallway and read for this guy? So I go in the hallway and I read for Eli. So I come in, I read for Eli, and they were like, that was really good. And in my head, I'm like, I kind of know, but yeah, okay. But yeah, anyway. And so yeah, ended up getting a role, and that's sort of what happened.
And
Just off
Eli
of,
was born.
and Eli was born. I liked Eli. That was a good character. I liked him.
What you like about him?
Eli was Eli marched to the beat of his own drummer.
Mhm.
Eli, I don't know if you ever watched the show in its entirety,
I did.
but they had that evil boss. Eli was the one who he didn't just take whatever she was given, partly because it turned out that that was his mom, right?
Mhm.
But he challenged the lead guy. He challenged August. He challenged his mom. He as little as he was in there, throughout he was in every episode probably for like a minute or two. But even in those moments, he was like, "Oh, this guy is his own person." I resonated with that. I liked it.
That's what's up. I think that's even to your point or your question earlier of like queer characters. If you don't add that spice in there, if you always just show up sassy,
Mhm.
if you always just show up with your neck rolling, and this is not just queer, this could be black, this could be playing a best friend, regardless of race.
Mhm.
I think when you look at all of the procedural shows and they're figuring out the crimes, there's a muscle person, there's a pretty girl,
Very formulaic.
there's a yes, and then there's the person that's a little geeky, whether they are the smart one that's going to MacGyver and get you through the situation, or they're going to find the codes online and break it or whatever. So that person is wearing glasses or wearing
Mhm.
barrettes in their hair, or
Or plaid.
that you understand what I
Mhm.
mean. Even if through design of costume or through the proxy of the writer that the character is a certain way, I still say you owe it to yourself to breathe life, some real authentic life into those characters.
Because they're human.
That is correct. As are you.
Mhm.
I have tons of friends that are skater boys, skater
Mhm.
girls, tons of tattoos, piercings, and they love collard greens just like I like collard greens.
Mhm.
Or they like going to amusement parks just like I like going to amusement parks. We may listen to totally different types of music, but there's some type of commonality. So where is it that, however it is that you show up in your type,
Mhm.
how is it that you can then bring parts of that to your character?
There was this guy years ago. We were talking, and he was new to LA, and he was like, "I'm gonna be an actor because man, it's easy."
Hmm.
And I was like, "I'm gonna tell you something. If it were that easy, wouldn't everybody be out there walking around with gold statues? Wouldn't everybody's name be out there on that ground? Wouldn't we see everybody in something if that were the case?" It's about bringing a person to life
Mhm,
because it's words on a page.
mhm,
And to your point earlier, often not written by people who share your experience.
mhm,
Years ago, this conversation would have looked like room full of white writers writing for an all black cast. Those words on that page don't look the same as when it comes out of our mouths
mhm.
because of just who we are.
There's
Um,
a rhythm.
there's a rhythm to how we speak. We speak, there's a reason I watched sitcoms growing up. I was a sitcom kid also, along with talk shows. I learned comedic timing, comedic rhythm. Like, oh, that's why Bernie Mac is so funny. Because he says this right at the right time. If he said it too late, it wouldn't be funny. If he said it too early, it wouldn't be funny.
Mhm.
There's a rhythm to how we speak, to how
That's
we
right.
are. If someone is not of the culture, they're not going to get that rhythm. But we got to give it that rhythm.
Mhm.
So, yes, to your point. Nicco, is there a myth about Hollywood that you wish more people understood?
I think we're talking about it that it's not easy. Um, my experience, I will say, they usually say that LA or Hollywood is so pretentious. That has not been my experience. And I think that hasn't been my experience because of my circle.
Mm.
My circle has allowed me, they've been very real mofos since day one. you know. Now I do see pretentious behavior around me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was met with that in the beginning as well, but it's not something that's the norm or that is my go-to. You know, I think a lot of times you attract what you keep putting out there. You know, it becomes a part of
If
manifestation.
you thinking it, sooner or later it's going to show up.
Oh, they're going to take advantage of me. They're always going to do it.
They will.
They
And they
will,
are.
because that's what you're breeding, you know. Um I remember in the beginning, again, to get tape, you know, for a reel. I did YouTube series. I did student films. And those were scenarios where you're not always working with a director that has clear vision. You're not always working with someone that's under, like on YouTube series, that are under union jurisdiction or following those rule and guidelines of time and things like that.
Mhm.
But I also knew enough from my career at that point to advocate for myself. So I think people, when people think that Hollywood is, they have that myth about it being pretentious. No. Um, Even when your friend or the person that said that it was easy that you met, I don't want to call them your friend, but the person that was
Mhm.
saying it was easy, I think it's different in terms of what it is that you want out of the experience. I think it can be easy if you're saying, I just want to be a reality star, you know, or personality, because even though that's not easy, people
Because you have
think
to
that
keep up with that too.
that is correct.
You got to keep
That
playing
is
that character.
that is correct on and off the
You
camera.
have to be that character.
You understand what
Because
I'm
it's
saying?
reality,
That's
right?
correct. So you got to be this all the time. And if you're
Mhm.
not careful, you'll slip up and trip yourself up into thinking something about yourself that has never been true.
That has been the downfall of many reality TV stars.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, some of the biggest reality TV stars we've ever seen. I won't say no names, but fell into the character and couldn't get out of the character and started thinking things about themselves that weren't true. And now,
Boom.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I had a friend. We went to high school together, and he also was in New York. Had left Detroit and went to New York and was doing Broadway. And he had come out here. He had got a serious regular job.
Uh oh.
He got a serious regular job on
What every actor worth their salt
you
wants,
understand what I
right?
mean? And it was a good show, and it was the first season of the show, and it became toxic for him
Mhm.
because he was ready to uplive. He was ready to like floss. He was ready for quote unquote Hollywood.
Mm.
And you don't realize that that can burn you out.
And it will.
It can burn you out. It's not healthy to always be quote unquote on. It is not sustainable. And you cannot, if you want a show from Nicco Annan, you must pay for that show.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get your money's worth,
But you gonna pay.
but you're gonna pay for that show. You know, I believe in showing up authentically for those reasons, you know. Mhm.
Nicco, stop stopping yourself.
No,
Go
because
on.
I know, no, no. I ain't trying to go up on the whole diatribe for y'all. Y'all be all right because you could pay for that TED Talk too. Ah, I'm here to talk about things that you've
You were
learned.
on a
I'm
roll,
saying.
Nicco. I liked what you was giving. I
Listen.
liked what you was giving. Nicco, has there ever been a moment you wanted to walk away
From what?
from, I don't know, the Hollywood life, the industry, the grind? You know what? The grind of being an actor and working to get somewhere.
I don't think so. I'm really trying to think honestly. There were times when it got really hard here in LA,
Mm,
you know, for me transitioning from New York to LA, because I wasn't 22 anymore. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And I think that when you're when you're of a certain age, regardless of what that age is, but like if you're just starting, right? I think that there's a different type of hunger and an energy, and I can do it. I can,
mhm,
sure, I can, yup, I'll work overnights, I'll
mhm.
do this, you know, I can do this without pay, you know, pro bono, because I
You
want
want it
this.
that
I
much.
want that experience. I want to say that I did it. I want to learn what that is. I want to get the real. I want to get the material. Like there's difference. And I think sometimes for me, when I got older and had come to Los Angeles, it was more about I gotta live. Like the business is cool, but I need my life.
You really do.
I need my life. I
do.
needed balance. So I didn't think about walking away, but there were times when it was hard. But I'm gonna tell you something that I think is my key for that. And I think that is because I am multifaceted in my talents. And growing up, especially when I got deep into my training and like I went to a college prep high school and I was performing and competing in forensics and interlocking and going to the NAACP AXO competitions for the youth, getting scholarships and stuff like that. Sign up, do your part. But people would always tell me, you got to pick. You're going to do, or oratory. You're going to do singing. You're going to do dance. You're going to do acting. What are you going to do? You can't do all these things. You can't do all these things. And I was like, but why? I love musicals. Why?
Well, part of it is people don't want to think that hard, right? It's easiest for people to look at you and say you're this or you're that.
That's
That's
it.
easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to look at somebody who's a multi-hyphenate and say, okay, well, you're this, 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 and that. How do we merge these things together and have them serve a singular purpose? And there is a way to do that. I recently just went through that with reps, the whole thing. It's like, but you're an actor. And it's like, yeah, and
I'm a host.
and they're like, yeah, but, and I'm like, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more to it. There's so much more.
I thought that was, though, for me, it was something that I did learn. Oh, y'all saying it wrong, or y'all didn't finish the sentence. Because I did learn that I could not do it all at the same time.
There we go.
That was the
There you
part
go.
of the statement that was always left out. Because it was being in an acting conservatory and acting, and then how orientation comes about every semester or every semester, but especially in the fall for
Right.
school, where incoming classes are coming in, and there was something that we did at my school called RAView, which was the RA's review.
Were you an RA?
I was. And so they always got together to give like this show. It was like a Saturday Night Live, a sketch comedy show of all this talent of what you can expect at college.
It was like a review
on this campus,
Okay.
whether it was about campus safety, whether it was about date rape, where do you report for health services? Oh my gosh, you burning. This is where you got to go, or you need some more condoms. This is
I
what
went
you do.
to a Catholic school. Condoms were contraband at my
Got
school.
you.
So
Oh my God, they were all burning with syphilis, huh?
every one of them, and you couldn't do nothing about it because there was nowhere to
Lord
go.
have mercy.
You had to go down to urgent care. There was nowhere else to go. Or Queens County Hospital.
Lord, and you really had an encounter down
Yes,
there
you did.
because that was Jamaica Queens.
Yes, sir.
Woo.
Yes, sir.
I know about that Jamaica Queens life because I used to live out there. That was the last neighborhood I lived in before I actually came
You
to
lived in
LA.
Jamaica?
Mm-hmm.
Baby, we were, they called it Jamaica Estates because that's what the school was to be fancy, but that was Jamaica Queens. Y'all like, let's stop this game.
That was the F train, right?
Yeah, F train to Q Gardens, you take the Q46, or we will walk to Hillside 168. That's Jamaica Queens.
That's correct.
Like, I don't care what estate you put after it, that is Jamaica Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah, condoms were contraband. There was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do. So I love that you had that experience because I cannot relate.
So we did that show, and I remember I choreographed a piece on 4 of my female dancer friends. They were in the dance conservatory. They happened to be the 4 or 5 black girls that were there at the time. There were more. There was, I think, like 3 other black girls in the conservatory of dance at the time, but I didn't happen to use them because we just weren't friends and like tight at that time. And the dean of dance actually saw that and went to them and was like, "Oh my gosh, girls, oh, you guys were beautiful. I've never seen you all dance like that. Blah, 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 blah. Who choreographed it? Which one of you choreographed it? And they was like, Nicco. And she was like, who's Nicco?
He's Nicco.
He's Nicco, you know, the big black guy. He's over in the acting conservatory. He be in the dance building with us, you know. He just choreographed. She was like, who? So she wound up going to the dean of acting, Israel Hicks at the time, and was like, who is this guy and what's going on? You have, and that's how I heard that she wanted me for the conservatory for choreography, because she was offering me this from seeing one dance, and she was like, if he could do this with 4 of my dancers, what else can he do?
You brought out something in them that she wasn't even able to.
That is correct. And to me, and then he tried to chastise me because, you know, you're in the acting conservatory. You're not supposed to be doing stuff outside the conservatory. You know, and I was like, but are my grades up to par? I'm not on probation. I've never had a warning. Everything is, shut up. Just go ahead and go talk to the lady.
Oh, because you was right.
That's correct. You know,
right, yeah.
he was not making fun of me. He was just giving me a hard time.
Yeah.
He always did that. But he also told me, he was like, that it will take some time. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, it's going to take some time for, you know, the industry to kind of catch up to where you are. He said, but don't stop. Don't stop. So it was little nuggets like that I got along the way. So I say to people, and like, you know, other queer artists or people out there, I'm going to say, open up your heart, open up your mind, because sometimes there's little birdies that are dropping nuggets on you, even if it's this podcast. Hello.
Knock, knock.
That you are where you are supposed to be, and to keep on going, because I'm not out here for nothing, and I'm not out here just for me. So the space that we are making on your platform, in my work, is I take it for the next, you know, because I want someone to come up behind me that creates a show that allows me to take up space as a 50-something-year-old version of myself, you know, and making it happen. I mean, it's just so much, bro. It's so much.
The work then makes you one of the 10,000 that somebody takes in the room.
That is correct. That is correct.
You become one of the many.
Many.
That
You ain't
people
in this
take in
shit
the
by
room with them.
yourself. You're not in this shit by yourself. That's something to me when you talk about Hollywood that I get a little irritated, confused by.
Do tell.
No, I just come from a place of community.
Sure.
I come from a place of community.
No stronger place to be.
I don't know why we not showing up for each other. I don't know. I mean, I know people are selfish. I know people can be problematic and blindsided by things, but overall, like, yo, we in this together. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, I think a lot of people think that if somebody gets this, then there won't be enough for me.
That is called lack of confidence.
Exactly.
That is called lack of confidence.
Exactly. If they get this, then I won't have it.
Listen,
if I tell them this, then it's going to take from me.
You got that hip crease over there, but I got hips. You understand what I'm saying?
Correct. You do have something I don't have, and vice versa.
Do you understand?
Exactly.
They're both a good time.
Exactly.
It's just about which do you choose
what
that
you like.
day.
It depends what you like.
You vegan or you want some iron?
Exactly.
You understand what I mean?
It's all about preference.
That's correct. Today.
I do have this nice hip crease though. But anyway,
I remember back in Cheetah in August.
You did. Did we film a scene together? I don't remember.
We didn't.
We saw each other on set though, but we didn't film a scene together.
I was like, who that little beige boy?
Oh, stop it, Nicco.
Yeah, a little shorty over there, you know.
Oh, stop it.
They wasn't feeling me at that time. You understand what I mean? But it's all good.
That Thanksgiving though, that I saw you, as soon as, do you remember that when I got out of the car, before I could say anything to you, you picked me up and carried me in the house? Do you remember that?
No.
I do. Yes, you did.
Damn.
The second we got out the car, you picked me up and carried me in the house.
Why?
I don't know. But yeah, it was fine. It was like, okay, fine. So you today versus, think back on when you first started in the industry, when you first came into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
How did you define success back then versus how you define it now?
Okay, so you really must have paid attention in the control room because you actually are asking thoughtful questions. And I want to just stop and say, I'm grateful that he's actually asking questions and didn't have me come out of my day just to ask me the same one or two questions. Because I could do very much like Beyonce. I'm sorry, I already answered this. We already answered. Can we already answer that?
You could give that.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm not mad because I wasn't mad at her when she did it because you like, yo, we've been doing this for 15 hours today. Like, come on.
You could watch the tape from the last interview.
And you can create your own little bit and keep it pushing.
Correct.
I
appreciate that.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. Tell me, what was it again? Because I didn't got myself off. So that I got the gist, but give it to me one more time.
Think of you back when you first started acting.
Mm-hmm.
And
Success.
Today. How did you define success then versus how you define it now?
It made me think. That question makes me have a moment of pause because I had a moment with my mom one time. I was in New York doing theater and I had come home. I was trying to do more on camera work at the time because I was like, I want to get more into TV and film. And I was having some commercial auditions and there was this, it was a telephone commercial or something like that. And it was a guy, he was my build. He was about your complexion though. And he had like this red polo shirt on. And she was like, don't worry, baby. One day, you're going to be successful like him too. You that could have been my child. She did one of them things. I'm like, everybody mama think that their child could do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the fact that she said, one day you'll be successful just like him. And I was like, I said, mama, didn't I put some money on your rent? I said, mama, I got myself here from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Mama, you ain't had to give me no money in the last 3 years. Like, I'm already successful. I said, you just don't see me. I'm busting my ass every day down here at Def Poetry Jam. I'm choreographing these one-person shows. You just don't see it on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sitting in front of her.
That's correct. I'm on the other side of the creative table, because what I did do when I say I used all of my talents. If I didn't get a job acting, I was choreographing. If I wasn't choreographing something, I was directing something. If I wasn't doing that, I was in a musical. I was in a straight play. And for me, especially in New York, those were the things that kept my career going and it kept me excited and interested. I never got bored. I was like, oh, I need some money.
You got to keep your own flame lit.
That is correct.
You do.
And I was on fire. You know what I mean? And some people are like, oh, you took a break from acting? No. You just ain't seen me. And you just because you ain't seen me don't mean it ain't happening.
Like you've been sitting at home sleep all day.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So for me, success was deemed by being able to do what I love and be able to take care of my family. Now, I definitely think that is a part of what I quantify success as. I also think that there's a lot more of, am I personally happy with what I'm doing? I consider that success as well. Of course, being able to take care of myself, financially and everything like that. But I like to be happy with what I'm doing.
What makes Nicco happy?
Truth. Truth. Sometimes even when it hurts. Truth makes me happy because I know that it is. It's not something that I have to. I think because of the amalgamation of my worlds, I am always having to. I don't want to have to conjure anything. I don't want to have to dissect it and what are the meanings behind it. I don't want to have to do any subtextual work. Tell me what it is, put it on the table.
1 and 1 is 2.
Let's
get to it.
That's it. I'm a straight talker. Boom, make it so.
I tell people this all the time. Like, we don't have to talk in code.
No.
You just say what it is.
That's it.
And to what we talked about earlier, there is now a such thing as Hollywood talk. That's a real thing where sometimes people skirt around something. It's like, just say it straight out. Say it flat out. Say exactly what you mean.
When did you have that kind of a moment like with somebody in the business? Did you?
Yes, sometimes, when you're just starting out, sometimes you have it with reps, right? Sometimes they don't want to say the thing that needs to be said. Sometimes what they need to say is you need to get your shit together. Like, do you want to have reps or do you not want to have reps? Sometimes they need to say that, but instead it's very much, well, have you thought about getting new pictures? Like, come on now, come on
This
now.
picture don't need to change one more time.
Like, come on now. It's not about pictures. What else is there, right?
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
But most times it's not.
And then especially when you're dealing with a multi-hyphenate, sometimes people think in a very linear way. You're an actor, you're a this, you're a that. And it's like, yeah, but think about how much of a cut above you would be above your own contemporary's agent if you would think outside the box and think, how can I merge this multi-hyphenate's hyphens with acting? It would put you a cut above. But what do I know?
You know that that's your truth.
Correct.
You know that that's your truth. I think that I've learned that in this business, because I also used to be an agent. Yeah. Well,
Nicco. Commercial, theatrical?
Commercial. Yeah, I was a commercial print agent that did commercials in New York.
Okay, talk from the agent side. Tell us something we don't know.
That's why I said that the pictures do matter. The pictures absolutely are your first, audition. It's the first representation of who you are. If you given all of this machismo and you given all this swag and then you come in, weak, feeble, unsure, or like,
somebody's getting a phone call.
Yeah, it's like you wasted a slot. I could have given this slot to someone over here at CED, or I could have given, like, this is not what we're looking for this. I feel that sometimes people don't understand that in film and television, it is about being, and in theater, oftentimes it's more about becoming. So in a theater audition, they like to see you become the character because it's about what is your process. Oh, you're getting ready to sing this song? Okay, you're going over to the pianist and you're giving your music. You're taking your beat before, you're breathing, you're becoming, you're relaxing, and then you go into, and then you go to your aria. Film and TV, we don't have time for that. I want you to come in and let me see you be the character, because quote unquote, that's in you. That's you. That's where people, I think, oftentimes get tripped up thinking that the people that they see are the characters that they portray, because you don't get to see the moments before or after. You don't get to see them come out of character. You're seeing people in character in the moment. Boom.
That's it.
That's it.
You don't get to see them come out of character, and then you also don't see when they can't come out of character, because that happens too. Sometimes it's a process to come out the character. Some actors don't get out of the character.
It's also a technique that people have to learn. Sometimes, again, the benefit of training.
Did you like being an agent?
I did.
What'd you like about it?
It took away all pressure from me as an actor.
Because you realized it had very little to do with the talent in front of you.
That is correct. I knew that it was a numbers game. I knew that it was about opportunity. When I would get calls from clients that would say, oh, we're looking for an Upper East Side couple, no redheads. Oh, the client doesn't want to see redheads? Why wouldn't? Oh, his ex-wife was a redhead and took him for all
Makes
this money.
Makes him feel some kind of way.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Great. Like that just lets you know something. So even if you had someone that could really be perfect for the role, but see, as an agent, because I knew I wanted people to take a risk on me, there were many times that I had clients, I would be like, now look, they only looking for white girls.
So you go in here.
You go in here. I need you to make sure you have your blowout. Don't go in here curly. Go with your blowout. And I want you to do your thing. Be you. But I'm telling you in advance, they're not looking for black girls. So you make them want you. I think sometimes, again, truth, agent, every agent wasn't always telling you stuff like that.
Right.
I also knew that if I only had 3 slots that I was allotted for the Pantene commercial, I wasn't sending people that I knew that had a weave.
Because it's a hair
It's a
commercial.
hair commercial. And people would be offended if you're asking, like, is this your hair? But the people that were on my roster, they knew I'm a straight shooter. Tell me this. What do you do? Are you okay with panties? Are you okay? Nicco, what? This is an always panty liner commercial. I need to know. Are you okay?
You're gonna have to stand there in your panties.
Panties.
Like it's a panty liner.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
those are little things that people don't always think about. And as an agent, that I tried to get ahead of. So because I was doing it all the time, I knew that when it came to me, there was so much that I just really for real was saying fuck it when I went into an audition room. Y'all don't know what y'all want anyway.
I think that's so important because sometimes, you go in the audition room and you think they know exactly what they want. I need to be what they want, but they don't know what they want. So you trying to be that, you're already out of being just off top.
They want you to show them what they want.
And then they go, oh, wow, I never even thought of that. Or you read a line a different way than they even pictured it in their head sometimes, when the writer's in the room.
They didn't want me for Uncle Clifford.
Really? You wowed them.
Even when we did the theater version, I remember the artistic director at Mixed Blood Theater. I don't know if he's still there. He was lovely. He was cool dude. He was great with the production and all that stuff. But he told me at the end of the run, he said, I didn't see you for this. I did not want you for this. And I was like, oh, wow, Jay. His name started with a J. Can't remember. But I was like, wow, that's bold. I was like, that's bold. And he was like, oh, I just thought that, you were too big. I was looking for someone, that was a little shorter. I don't think he said prettier, but he was basically describing like a pretty Ricky kind of a guy.
He wanted somebody almost petite.
Okay. Very petite, it's interesting also that I think people equate femininity or what is this? Relatability or digestible character through colorism because they wanted someone maybe your complexion or lighter, John Singleton, God rest his soul, he said something similar to me, when I was on Snowfall. And he said, yo, Nicco, I ain't want you for this role. He said, I was looking for, he told me to my face, he said, bro, I was looking for a pretty Ricky motherfucker. And then your big ass walked into the room. And he said, you look like you could fuck me up. And I was like, I want that. That's the character. That's the character. And I was like, you're welcome. But I think, again, when I say like showing up as your authentic self, regardless if you're an actor or not, but as we walk through life, I feel like you owe it to people because people, the more that they see authenticity walking around them, it's inherent that it comes to them as well.
They get licensed all of a sudden.
That is correct. Everybody knows that you could be a football player, you could be a drag queen, you could be a doctor, and all three be gay, and they all look totally different. Like gay don't have a look.
Sure don't.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Don't.
It's really a question. Like people, if you're offended that somebody asked if you were gay, that's a you thing.
That's a you thing.
Because queer, gay, however you identify, it looks like so much now. And that's only because people are walking around in their authentic selves. And, that's what we deserve.
Well, thank you for showing up as your authentic self, Nicco.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you.
Even though you ain't like that, I carried you over the threshold.
I did not like that you carried me over the threshold, but I definitely was like, oh, he's carrying me over the threshold on
Wasn't
Thanksgiving.
a little much. Wasn't a little on Thanksgiving.
On Thanksgiving. In front of everybody was there.
You wanted it, what, in the dark?
Nicco, that is not what I'm saying.
What were the things that you learned?
About what and when?
Being carried over the threshold.
I learned I didn't really like being carried.
Okay, that's real.
I learned that.
Okay.
I learned, wow, Nicco is strong.
Okay.
And
this is wild.
And I learned what a way to make an entrance. Because everybody was there. We were the last to get there. So when you carried me into the living room, everybody was there. So it was just like, oh,
hi.
Hello, hi, I'm here.
That's wild.
Yeah.
You know, I don't remember doing that.
I'm sure you don't.
I don't remember doing that.
Sure you don't.
I'm over here fucking with you. Like, I don't remember that, but I know that probably is something that I would do.
That is
That
absolutely
is something
something.
that I would do.
Yes. So when I think of you, that I immediately think of that. It's a great memory. It's a great memory.
I'm here
Fantastic
for
memory.
it. I'm here for it. I'm glad that you learned those things about yourself.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Or that you liked or that you didn't like.
You know, we live and we learn. Don't
Ain't
we?
nobody carried you since.
I don't like to be carried.
Why?
I'm not into it. Put me down. Like I'm not into it.
Because you're not like a little petite dude to me.
Right.
Like, you know, you are very muscular, you're
Right.
toned, you solid, you know what I mean? How tall are you? 5'10"?
5'11" and 3/4, Nicco.
Sorry. I'm 6'2". Sorry, my bad.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just be seeing it from a different angle.
You're looking down, so it seems shorter than it really is.
It's
5'11".
okay. Okay. Yeah, because you're not short.
I don't like to be carried. Put me down. I'm not in. I'm not. I'm not into it.
Hey, those are the things that you learn.
Things we learned.
That's right.
And I'm not a big guy, so I could see why someone who's big would be like, but yeah.
I mean, I've had smaller people pick me up.
I don't mind doing the picking up. I don't want to be the pick-up-y. That makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense. But anyway, that's not to say I didn't enjoy our
I don't take
our walk through the threshold. It was fantastic.
Screaming.
It's fantastic. Loved it, Nicco. Loved it. Nicco, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that you reached out.
I'm glad that I did too.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did too.
Yeah, it's a definite pleasure. I think that amplifying our own voices is key. I think that is key, and I'm just happy to have a community that's behind me and that is also proud of the work that's being done. You know, because that doesn't always happen either. You know, sometimes you could do the work and everybody's not feeling it, or
what is that? What you doing?
But I'm grateful, for the support. I'm grateful for the support even through the time. I'll say like time lapse, because people may know just, of course, like you mentioned, P-Valley, but having choreographed on the show as well, and in between running my commercial dance program with Rhapsody James, Motivating Excellence, it's been dope. I'm a choreographer on All American on the CW and All American Homecoming. It's a beautiful thing, like just having career, So, I mean, I guess I would say like something that I've learned is that you cannot quantify your career by other people's merits. So you can be in a place sometimes where you're wondering what is your next, or when is it going to be my turn? And some of my friends say, I know you was thinking that, from 2015 and 2016, it had to be, because so many people around me in my circle were winning.
And that can make a person feel away. Absolutely.
People around me were winning. They were getting their series. They were getting their shots. They were getting their shows. They were producing this. They were getting cast in that. And I was leaving the party early. Nigga, where you going? We just getting started. I was like, it's 10:30. I got to be at work at 11 tonight. I got to work the overnight shift. I'm going to change clothes in the car. I see y'all.
Yep.
And even though that was not the majority of my career, like I said, coming from New York and theater, it was a totally different thing. But there were absolutely sacrifices that I made to get myself here and on a fast track. I knew that I didn't want to spend 10, 19 years in Los Angeles on this hard grind. I always kind of frame it, like I was just telling a friend of mine, Brian, the other day, I was like, I kind of frame it under like high school, 4 years. This is my freshman year going through this transition. All right, this is my sophomore year. We know what this is. We in flow.
It's junior year.
That's right.
All right, you
That's
feeling it now.
Here come the AP. Here come the
feeling
AP
it.
exam, you know what I mean? Here come the AP exam
feeling
senior
it.
year. Come
Senior
on.
year, what's up?
Hit this SAT, hit this ACT, and I'm out. Second semester.
Twirl over here.
That's right.
Boom.
It's an internship. Let's go.
We out.
You know, so that was like how I kind of framed high school, college, how I kind of framed like that marker time for me. So I was patient with myself when I wasn't seeing it. And I'm going to tell you that was where I learned so much. I learned about contracts. I learned about how to interact with your wardrobe person. I learned about, like, even as a character, how do you try on clothes? Because I saw assisting a friend of mine or so, like, oh, whenever she put the outfit on and she took a picture, oh, she didn't like that outfit, but because she did it, they sent it to the people anyway because they liked it. So I knew that, oh, certain agencies as the actor that you had, whether it was things to ask for in negotiations prior to, how to handle yourself on set, or just some of the God-given experiences that God was taking me through of working a job where I was working overnight. I would not have been able to sustain some of these night shoots on P-Valley of working till 7 o'clock in the morning. And here it is, 5 something in the morning, and I'm giving you full on hysteria, emotion, and whatever the given circumstances are, or we're dancing full out on these poles and in these 7-inch shoes and in this wardrobe and in these wigs, all of this stuff overnight as if it was 4 p.m.
You were being prepared in ways you didn't even realize.
That is absolutely correct.
And that is everybody right now.
That is correct.
On their own journeys.
That is correct. So don't give up on yourselves, you know, don't give up on yourselves. And whatever it is that you may be going through, what are the things that you learn from it? Use it and apply it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
You got to come back. You know that, right?
All right. I'll come back when the season come out.
Oh, okay. When does the season come out?
I knew you was going to ask that. I don't know when the season they have not given us a date, you know. But what I do know is that I have said this season of P-Valley that will be coming out, this season 3, is some of the best work that I have seen and felt. Period. I that's how I feel.
There's not even words for it.
I feel like definitely don't though. The writers, Katori and the writing staff, they did they thing. Like they created some stuff that we were, as a cast were like, wait, what?
We doing that?
Oh my God, that do make sense. I did say that season 1. Oh my God. Like, and it was, yeah, it's magical. It's magical to see these people that feel like family go on this journey. So this season, I'm very excited for the Pink Posse and everybody else to get a hold of. You know, we overseas now. We over in Paris. It's funny, like, you know, Paris is just getting their first whiff of P-Valley. So they are writing and like their comments, because it's on Netflix there now.
Right.
And it's going to Netflix somewhere else, another region.
Okay,
so,
international.
Yeah,
Okay.
so like that kind of stuff is building. Again, just like choreography or working on the other creative side of a team, you may not always see it, but there's a needle that's being moved. Your time is prepared for you.
Amen to that.
Amen, Ashe.
Amen, Ashe.
Yeah. Thank y'all. Y'all go subscribe, you know what I'm saying? My homie, he got a little channel over here. The things that he learned, you know, it's a lot. He learned that he don't like being picked up over the threshold. Now, that's something. You understand what I mean? So if you gonna show up, you gonna step up. You in a relationship?
I am not.
Okay, so if you trying to show up, you trying to spit your game, don't carry this brother over no threshold.
Please don't.
Don't do it.
Nicco got away with it because I like Nicco. Nicco. I love
And I ain't had no show at the time, you know what I mean? He only be in that now because, like, you know that, but you know.
You didn't have a show at the time, and I was like, you know what? I like Nicco. And you didn't have a show at the time. Bye, Nicco.
Bye, y'all. See you.
Thank you for watching Things I've Learned. Remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.